you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. There, ladies thinks that makes it official. Welcome to the big show. For 16 years and over 2,000 episodes, we have bringing you the Chris Voss Show. And this is August, right? Yeah. Sometime this August, I think it's on the 19th, we turned 16. Can you believe we've been doing this for 16 years? We need to find something better to do with our time, evidently. But as always, we have the most amazing guests on the Chris Voss Show. Remember, the Chris Voss Show is a family that loves you, but doesn't judge you, at least not as harshly as your mother-in-law. Tell your mother-in-law, Doe, to get on the stick and go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss one, the TikTok, and all those crazy places on the internet. Remember, the Chris Voss Show family loves you, but we don't loan you money. Please stop asking. Today we have an amazing young man on the show. We're going to be talking to him about his VC firm and some of the work that he's done in Silicon Valley. It's going to be an interesting conversation about venture capital, investing, entrepreneurship in emerging markets. Probably we'll throw some AI in there a little bit, cryptocurrency and blockchain. There's a little bit of everything for everyone, as it were. It's a buffet where it's going to be a Silicon Valley VC buffet of information. There you go. I don't know why I'm putting my poor guest up to this. He's like, what the hell? I didn't sign up for a buffet. Anyway, we have William Quigley on this show. He's a veteran VC and serial entrepreneur, and he has a remarkable entrepreneur journey and is deeply rooted in the tech and innovation industry. He was the first institutional investor in PayPal and has over 25 years experience as a tech-focused VC. He founded Tether, the world's first fiat-backed stablecoin and the most traded cryptocurrency to date. Additionally, he founded one of the active blockchains globally, WAX, which has over 10 million users and 20 million daily transactions. His experience as a VC is equally impressive. He founded Clearstone Venture Partners, a $700 million early-stage focused VC firm, and was managing director at Idea Lab and Capital Partners. Capital Partners actually was the world's first. I have a camera in front of this, so I'm trying to fight around it. The world's first consumer internet venture capital firm. At Idea Lab, he was an early investor in leading Web 1.0 era companies, PayPal, NetZero, MP3.com, and GoTo.com. The first company to rank search results based on competitive bidding process. Welcome to the show, William. How are you?
Good, thank you. And
there you
go. Only correction I would make there is I was a co-founder of all those things, not the founder.
Oh, well, did I give you the code? I think I just skipped over that, didn't I? Just glossed it, but it's okay. Let the power go to your head. Run with it. William, there you go. So we have that corrected. So William, give us your .coms. Where do you want people to find you on the interwebs and check out your companies?
I'm not as active as a lot of people, but it would be Twitter, William E. Quigley, or at William E. Quigley. But I'm usually building stuff more than I'm actually publishing.
There you go. That's the better thing to do because, no one gets paid to talk their opinion on Twitter, except for Elon Musk, maybe, I think. I don't know.
Yep.
But even then, he's having to sue people to get paid. So there you go. So, William, give us a 30,000 overview of your companies we're going to plug today a little bit and talk about WAX and Tether.
Sure. I'll try to go real briefly. As you mentioned, I was a venture capitalist for many years. Part of what I was working on during that time was video gaming. Your audience may not know that a lot of the early people in crypto were from that industry, the video game industry, particularly the area that my partner and I focused on, which was the buying and selling of video game virtual items. We operated the two largest marketplaces for that globally. And as a result of that experience, when we eventually figured out that crypto or initially Bitcoin had some value. There were reasons I was skeptical, I'll be honest, but we went in very deeply and basically followed the playbook we had used during the Internet 1.0 period, which was looking at how that industry would probably evolve from infrastructure to applications and then to data analytics, and basically built companies or invested in companies that were doing all of those types of things. The most noteworthy one would have been Tether. That is first stable coin, and a stable coin is a crypto that is backed by something. And in the case of Tether, it's backed by a US dollar, not pegged to a dollar. It's backed by a dollar. And there's a difference we can go into later. Without Tether, crypto wouldn't exist the way it does. You would probably have a 75% reduction in the amount of daily trading, probably a 75% reduction in the valuation of crypto globally.
Wow.
For a lot of reasons, without Tether, crypto barely exists. Because of our background in video gaming and trading video gaming items, we were very interested in putting skins. For those in your audience who are gamers, they'll know what a skin is. A skin is a video game virtual item that has no in-game utility. It's strictly used for cosmetic value. Skins, as opposed to video game virtual items, we thought would benefit from being tokenized. In fact, before we tokenized the dollar, we wanted to tokenize video game skins, but the market, the technology didn't really allow for the scale that would need. By 2017, through some great technical developments, particularly by Dan Larimer, who invented something called the delegated proof of stake mechanism, we realized we could start to trade skins, which in the blockchain parlance are called NFTs. So we launched WAX. WAX was the first blockchain dedicated for NFTs and blockchain video game items. And it's still by far the most used, traded blockchain for that purpose. And now we're in 2024, 6 months post-halvening, a little less, from the Bitcoin blockchain, and soon to enter the next bull market.
There you go. And what are some top video games that you guys work with?
The most traded, we only care about video games where the virtual items are tradable and traded, which is a very small segment of global video games. Most video game companies don't like their players to be able to trade, which I think is kind of BS.
Kind of lame.
That's how it is.
I would agree.
So the most popular, the dominant game would be Valve's CSGO, Counter-Strike Global Offensive. CSGO has very valuable skins. At different times when I've told people not in that industry what they trade for, and this is before people got hung up on NFTs and what they went for. But you could have a Dragon Lore skin, a type of rifle in CSGO that would go for $30,000 US. So a lot for
$30,000 US. Wow.
For a skin that you got for $2.50 when you were playing the game, and you opened up a crate and it popped out. CSGO, the developers have done an extremely good job of monitoring and managing the proliferation of skins so that they keep stable. They are not the Venezuela of skins. They've managed the production of them such that they all hold their value, which is great. And after that, it drops off markedly. PUBG, for those of you, they're mostly first-person shooter games. PUBG, Team Fortress 2, these are all first-person shooter games with cool skins. Things like any of the very popular massive multiplayer online games like a Fortnite, the management of those companies really prohibit the trading. And there are ways to do it, but it's very hard and dangerous because you lose your account. So this is one reason why I think blockchain video games have a purpose, because the developers of blockchain video games actively want you to own and trade those skins. And so that is a much, I think, better use of a blockchain for that, because then those skins can survive whether or not the original game publisher is still around.
I like that. I'm a big Modern Warfare 3 fan. There's all sorts of skins they sell us and stuff, and it would be so cool to be able to trade some of that stuff.
Yeah, there's, go into any Reddit forum around item trading and you will see, heated discussions about whether it's good or bad. I think if done correctly, the gameplay is not hurt. And of course, skins themselves don't enhance the gameplay. That's where they differ from video game virtual items. They don't provide any particular power or benefit to the player. They're strictly cosmetic features, which is why they should allow those to be traded.
Yeah, they really should. I mean, it'll be fun. It adds more community. I mean, that's the one thing.
It does.
You always have to remember, adding community is really helpful to the support of a product or service.
It's everything for games, right?
Yeah.
It's over a 20-year period of time where a lot of game publishers have been against it. I think a lot of the older guys in the game industry are more against it than the younger guys. Mm-hmm. My partner invented the concept of trading on a centralized exchange, trading skins for fiat with a game called Ultima Online in the late 90s.
Oh yeah.
And then WoW, World of Warcraft Gold and whatnot. And then at some point it just, there was a fork and publishers hated it and a lot of game people liked it. And then, it just became a battle. And there's a few game publishers that are okay, but most are not.
That'll do it for all of that. I wish more of them would adopt that. What happened to NFTs? It seems maybe NFTs didn't work out. What's the story on that? You could spend obviously a lot of time on the NFT concept. But what I'll say is this: NFTs are a technical capability, right? Mm-hmm. The Bored Apes or any of the other more popular NFTs you saw, that's an application. Think of the NFT as an iPhone, and the Bored Apes is like an app, right? Okay.
So if you're kind of bored or done with your app, you don't use Angry Birds game anymore, you wouldn't throw away the iPhone, right?
Oh, okay.
So an NFT, I'll define it this way to your listeners. And this is why they're so extraordinary and will be around for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. Don't think of an NFT as a video clip, a music clip, a pretty picture. That's just one use of an NFT. So an NFT is, for those entrepreneurs out there thinking of building stuff, it is a way for me to send something to you electronically where without any effort, without any cost, and in near real time, that what I sent to you is genuine. And I can even be anonymous and send this thing to you. And instantly, at no cost, with no effort, that it's genuine. Mm-hmm. There is nothing else in the universe that has that property. Nothing else. If I give you a bar of gold, first, I can't do that electronically. But if I give you a bar of gold, you would have no idea if that's a bar of gold. And you would have to go to your neighborhood assay office, who may be in on the con, and they will tell you in a week, yes, it's gold or not. Obviously, any kind of paper currency, forget about it. How about if I give you a copy of my passport or whatever? Of course, North Korea exists. All of that stuff is a lot of it is fraudulent. In fact, there are many, many people in the world, millions of people in the world, whose sole job is to determine whether an official document is authentic. And if you could put a lot of those types of things on a blockchain, you would never have to do that, which is what makes it really remarkable. So you could be trading things electronically around the world with no effort, no cost, and always know instantly that what you got is the genuine thing. That's the properties of an NFT, right? Now, one version of that was, I'm going to make a pretty picture, and it's the original pretty picture, and it's not a fake. Okay, and so when the consumer mass market found out about these things in 2021, they went crazy because people like to collect stuff, and of course also because there was this promise they were going to go up in value. Net, I think it was still good that the NFT phenomenon happened, because it introduced people to, blockchains aren't scary, they actually are pretty fun. But they've kind of, those collectible objects really got overinflated. A lot of scammers just trying to tell you that their collectible thing was going to be worth something. I'm glad that came and went. And the trading volume's down 95%, but it still exists. And what you will see, I suspect, in the next 10 years is companies and countries putting passports, driver's licenses, birth certificates, real estate records, employment histories, college diplomas. They'll put those on NFTs so that anyone getting it knows it's the real thing.
Okay. That makes sense. I mean, imagine there was just a lot of hysterical. I mean, we had so many people on the show that were doing startups for different NFT variations and projects and add-ons or whatever the case may be. And so it was kind of interesting, all the stuff we had going on there. So let's talk a little bit about you. How did you grow up? How were you raised? What got you into the VC business and into being an entrepreneur?
I grew up in Oakland, California. And my mother was raising a bunch of kids by herself. And the only way she could figure out to do that, rather than give us up for adoption, was to start a company. And she really is probably the one that influenced me the most in terms of entrepreneurship. Because this is a woman who, basically an immigrant, not terribly educated, came to America when she was 14 and by herself, and figured out a way to make a living. And she emphasized to all of the boys how amazing America was, that, in most countries, you don't start companies and get people to loan you money and get people to help you very easily. And in America, it's, you want to do something that people might like? Sure, how can we help? So that I've learned I probably invested in and started hundreds of companies. And one of the things I've seen is many of the people who start companies, their parents were entrepreneurs. And so I feel like there's this path. If your parents are W-2s, and they did pretty well as W-2s, upper middle class, you're much more likely, I think, to be a W-2. And if your parents were entrepreneurs, they demystified that. I think you have a higher chance of saying, that's a path for me. Being
an entrepreneur is such a great thing. I mean, I don't think there's anything else like it, maybe other than experiencing childbirth, where you get pair bonded to your children. It teaches you so much, and it forces you. I think a lot of people, although I've seen some people that, I don't know, I think they got their money from family, but for the most part, it forces most entrepreneurs to become their best self, to become very self-actualized, very self-reliant, accountable, very self-accountable. And it's just such a great, I just can't think of anything else I'd rather be than an entrepreneur, although some days.
And in the U.S., I think it's a very powerful phenomenon, entrepreneurship. We promote it in our society. We tend to hold people up higher in status if they have started a company and employed people to work there and did it. Obviously, you always have other people helping, but one of the people who led the charge. And been all over the world. I've spent time all over the world, and there's no other place like America for being able to start a business, and then the business maybe fizzles out, doesn't do too well, and really no stigma attached to that. It's okay, try again. That to me is a powerful aspect of the American economic engine. Mm-hmm. And another topic you could spend a lot of time on is how post-globalization, the U.S. is going to be a major beneficiary, probably the largest beneficiary. And we will need a lot more entrepreneurs to be fulfilling some of the things, the goods, the services that previously we were maybe importing. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a very, very good time to be thinking about starting something. Mm-hmm. Also, the biggest change between when I was younger and now is now you can start digital businesses. Yeah. And the economics of digital businesses is massively better than traditional analog companies, where you have it's a lot harder to scale a traditional kind of brick and mortar business than it is a digital business. And so the internet has opened up a lot more opportunity for people to start companies with a much smaller amount of capital at the beginning, mm-hmm. and still scale it up to be addressing a global market.
Yeah. There's a lot that can be done there. What is some of your advice that you would give people that are entrepreneurs that are interested in getting into cryptocurrency and blockchain? Is the space already too full? Is there space for innovation? What would you say? Let
me say this first. In 1995, when we were starting our first consumer internet venture capital firm, mm-hmm. there were 2,400 or so websites globally at the time, mm-hmm. something like that. And when I went around to investors, and no one even knew what venture capital was back then. It just wasn't, the general public had never heard of it. But you would go to these people called limited partners, who are people who would give you money. Mm-hmm. And there were very few new firms, right? It was a very closed industry. But the most common thing we heard was, but there's already 2,000 websites. What could we possibly need another website for?
Oh, geez, wow, the days.
And I tried to, because it was the most common question. So I tried to come up with good answers. And, one of them was, hey, how many food places do you need? Like, why do we need a submarine sandwich shop when, why doesn't Pizza Hut just sell Subway sandwiches? Why doesn't your McDonald's sell Indian food or whatever? And it's mm-hmm. because people like variety, people specialize in different types of things, people have different skills in what they do, which seems so obvious to me, but it was not obvious. I would sometimes say, why don't we just have one store in the US called Clothes? And you just go to the clothes store. Why do we need thousands of different clothes stores? That's just because in a complex economy, you serve very niche markets. Mm-hmm. You become very good at one particular thing. You make really good, skis, whatever. Mm-hmm. So that was the most common thing I would hear. At the end of Web 1.0, which roughly ended, let's say, in the year 2000, once again, the prognosticator said, we're done. There's no more websites that need to be built, blah, blah, blah. I used to say to people in the 90s, I think there will ultimately be over 1 million websites. Now, what I should have said, which is what I'll say about blockchain, I should have said there will be more websites than there are human beings. Wow. And I would say the same about blockchains. There will be more blockchains, I'm certain of that, than there are human beings. Mm-hmm. And there are many, many reasons why many chains should exist. And so what I would say to any entrepreneur is this, and I do say this when I talk to entrepreneurs who are thinking about doing something in blockchain. Please don't attempt to do anything until you have a good understanding of what that is. What is a blockchain? And that's more than just reading it in a book. I was building blockchains for over 3 years before I knew what they were. Oh. Before I really sat down and synthesized, what exactly is this thing? Mm-hmm. It's like a database, but it does more than a database. What is it? So I would say build a chain, build an intelligent layer on that chain, or build an application, what we call a smart contract, build wallets or maybe marketplaces that interact with that chain, build a blockchain bridge that connects chains from one to another. And because blockchain is open source, you go into a GitHub repository, a lot of the code is already there.
Yeah.
That's part of what makes a blockchain, a public blockchain, what it is. The code can be inspected and therefore seen and taken by anybody. Why? Because we want to find vulnerabilities. So everybody can see it and then offer up patches if there's a vulnerability. So I would say first go build a chain. Go work with chains. That's another thing. Build an app on different chains and see how those chains work. And what's going to happen is you're going to develop, hopefully, what is the rarest element in the universe, which is insight. Insight is so precious. And all the great companies come from somebody having insight. And my bias is I believe insight doesn't come magically. I think insight comes from being deeply immersed in something and then realizing maybe there's something missing, or, wow, maybe the way people are doing it could be improved by some twist. It's hard, and I think this happened in 2021 with all of the NFT nonsense, and it happened in 2017 with the ICO boom, which is people rushed in, half-cocked, not really understanding what they were doing, but having no problem raising money. And when you can raise money quickly, a lot of people will cut corners and say, I'll figure it out as I go along, which is not usually a good strategy.
I saw a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw a lot of that. Let's see, what else do we have up here on deck? Now, you talk some about the Web 4 infrastructure and the need for massive investment in Web 4. I thought we were still trying to get to Web 2 or 3, or what web are we on?
Yeah. I truly hate those labels, I have to say. Yeah. Just so for your audience, Web 1 and Web 2 made sense to me. Web 1 was just first round of the internet. Web 2 was integrating the social graph and therefore allowing businesses to scale really fast. Web 3 is a dumb label because blockchain has nothing to do with the internet. It uses the internet, but it is much smaller than the internet. It's less important than the internet. There is no internet to be built on a blockchain. A blockchain is the worst possible way to do almost everything. But there are caveats there, and the caveats are amazing. There's a few things for which blockchains have no equal. But Web3 was a term invented by venture capitalists who were prohibited from investing in crypto. So they decided to call it Web3 so they could go to their limited partners and say, hey, we did Web 1, we did Web 2, you really don't want us to do Web 3? And a limited partner said, oh no, please do Web 3. So that's how we got Web 3. But we got it, so it is what it is. My comment about that is Web 3 was basically a lot of people putting NFTs and video games on a blockchain, not really at scale. But in order to remember there was this stuff called metaverse. Facebook talked about it. Blockchain people talked about it.
Oh yeah.
There's a role for blockchain in the metaverse, mainly in allowing people to pay things electronically, but it wasn't going to be run on a blockchain. However, no matter what you say, Web 4 to me was the hardware revolution that would have to take place before Ready Player One style worlds could actually exist. And there was this, I thought, very naive view in 2021 that Ready Player One was going to happen in 12 months or 2 years or something. No, the technological development that we need for anything close to that is decades away. And it's going to require trillions of investment in virtually all aspects of computer hardware infrastructure. And it really is, to me, a hardware focus, something that venture capitalists for 15 years heavily neglected because all the money was in, funding two guys to build an app and sell it for $1 billion. And that is a great business. If you don't have to invest in hardware, that's amazing. But we have come to the evolutionary end of milking as much as we can out of the existing hardware. And this is why you see companies like NVIDIA going from a few $100 billion in market cap to being the most valuable company on earth. Because NVIDIA is a hardware company. It makes semiconductor chips. And that is monstrously expensive and difficult. And VCs are going to have to start investing in that. And as are big companies. And unlike software, hardware is ponderous. It's very slow. You don't spin up a semiconductor fabrication facility in a year. Between planning and building and designing and launching, it could take 7 years. And $15-20 billion. That what I would say is, if you want Ready Player One, and that'll incorporate blockchain as well as internet, 2050, I would say, maybe we'll start to see cool stuff. Hope I'm around. 2050? Yeah. I mean, my partner and I, and I've worked with him for 20 plus years, he was much more optimistic about, for instance, all the metaverse stuff, right? He thought maybe by late 2020s, we would have, you put on the goggles and you really feel immersed.
Yeah.
I don't think that. I mean, how much do we talk about Apple's product at this point? I don't think
the lens one that they kind of stopped production on or something like that. I don't know.
Right. To me, that was like a no-brainer that was going to happen because we simply don't have the tech. And there's another more fundamental reason, and that is particularly half of our population, women, cannot stand wearing headgear in order to use computers. I've watched this all my life with gaming.
Is it because their hair? They don't want their hair messed up?
I think so.
And makeup too. I mean, you get makeup if you got that thing sitting on your face.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't stand it because it gets hot.
Yeah, that's what I do. I burn up.
And my God, and I don't want to go on a rant about this too long, but when you see, I love the way even Apple kind of was trying to sort of gaslight what they had. They weren't showing the freaking 10-pound battery pack that you have to have, right?
Yeah, they weren't,
The garden hose, conduit of cabling that's going from the batteries to the back. I mean, come on. That's not a fun thing. I think Microsoft got it much more correct.
Yeah.
This is going to be a workplace kind of industrial application. Sure, you're a worker, you're doing something, you got to put on the headgear, whatever, but not for fun. No gamer wants to go and put on these goggles and, so I don't see it. I don't see it until they are wearable glasses or contact lenses before people really do it. Now, once it happens, it's going to be staggering.
Yeah.
The idea of everywhere you go, there is a persistent digital overlay that's providing you information that's important and contextually relevant to you at that moment, wherever you are, is such a powerful thing. And I suspect it's so powerful, we're going to get there at some point. But if you said to me, even 2050 or 2100, I'd be more confident it's 2100 than even 2050 because it's a challenge. But once it's there, we're going to love it. I suspect people will never want to leave the house without it.
My friend Robert Scoble, you may know him.
Yes.
He's out running around with it, interviewing people, and then the price point's a big problem. $3,500, I think.
There you go. That's another problem.
A lot of families can't really afford that without selling a kid. But you run a if you're on the iPhone environment, I forget what they call it, the iPhone network, whatever. Their whole body of service charges. The ecosystem, there's the word I'm looking for. If you're in the iPhone ecosystem, you've already sold probably at least one kid and probably your own kidney at this point. When I saw that, I had the Google Glass early on, and I really loved it. I miss it, actually. I really do miss it. It was 720p on the camera, but I have all these videos of my dogs that I don't have anymore, where I was shooting first person and I could have both my hands because I had two huskies, and I could pet both of them and play with them and throw the stick and stuff, and you could see the video, and the video still looks really great. Why
do you think Google Glass was such a flop?
Because they tried to give it to influencers and make it influencer based, but they made it elitism is what killed it. Once they said that only special people can get a hold of it, people really resented that. If they would have made it so that, hey, we have a limited run of this, they should have just fucking run with it. I think it would have caught on. But the elitism of it, people didn't be, hearing that you can't get this because you're not special. You're not an influencer, you don't have a big enough.
Remember the term glass hole?
The glass hole, yeah. I think Scoble, actually, coming back to Robert, actually helped create that with the infamous shower scene.
I think the only other thing I would say on what you said was also there was this hype that it was going to be Ready Player One-ish, and I thought they really messed up there. Yeah. They should have been much more modest in how they described it.
Yeah. I think it would have caught on. The only other pushback was people yelling at you because they thought you were recording them all the time.
Oh, right.
And that, people will get up in your face with it, and they're like, "That's."
But now imagine, go to Soho in New York. Everybody's got their, influencer camera. It probably nowadays wouldn't be as big a deal.
I think Mark Zuckerberg had to say that line that pissed everybody off, but they woke them all up when he said, privacy's dead. It's been dead for a long time, and I'm the one who killed it. If you remember, and he said that, and everyone got pissed off, but then everyone started going, oh, yeah. I mean, I would have people yell at me with Google Glass, and I'd be like, do you see that there's cameras here? And these cameras are actually working. My video, the battery dies in 15 minutes. But I got to tell you, I'm enjoying the Meta glasses. I have the Meta Ray-Bans.
Okay.
I've been loving the crap out of them. I mean, they're not going to do anything crazy, but they're actually, they're making some improvements to it. But I really love it because it has that same Google Glass effect.
Right.
But I would love to see Google Glass. I still really think that could have been huge if they would have just mass produced it and said, fuck it, let's just put the hammer down like anybody else does for a product. And
I think Google has no cultural strength in consumer electronics.
Yeah.
They're not a consumer electronics company. They probably, if they were going to do something, they would need to have acquired a company.
Yeah.
And let that company be their consumer electronic manufacturing company.
Yeah. Because you think about it, I was able to see messages, notifications on my screen. So I could read messages, I could read my email on the screen. We don't have anything like that nowadays. Well, maybe the new Google Glass thing or the Apple iPhone, whatever the hell deal that is. But for $3,500, no.
Yeah, it's not something you're going to go outside with, Yeah. Definitely not that.
I mean, yeah. But unless you want women to resent you.
When that happens, as I said, I think it's decades away. But when it happens, I think it will be, just extraordinary to have all of these filters. Whatever. If you're looking for a place to eat, you'll have that filter on. If you go to a conference and you want to know who here knows me or, is in my social graph one step removed, let me put that filter on. Digitally enhancing life will be super valuable, when it can be done in a way that's convenient for people, which is, as you mentioned, one issue, battery life, huge issue, not an easy problem to solve. Talk to Elon Musk or anyone else who's working on battery technology. It's very hard.
Yeah.
So those things are tough. And when you stick in the digital realm, much easier.
There you go. What is your outlook on AI? Are you doing any VC investing in AI, or what's your feeling on that these days?
I have to say, it is an area for me that is really undeveloped. And I know all the hype is there. I know the value of diving deep into when a new platform, a new technology platform emerges. That's when there's amazing entrepreneurial opportunities. And I did that with Web 1.0, 2.0, with blockchain, but I have not done it with AI. And part of it might be because, all investors have scar tissue. I have, I'm guilty of that, or I have that as well. I have in my mind from the 80s to the 90s to the early 2000s, late 2000s, all of the effort to do something transformative with what we call AI, which itself is such a squishy, hard to define thing. Much of what we do today would probably have constituted AI 10 years ago. But my lens where I look through when I'm trying to decide if I'm going to jump in is based on novel business models or some other capability I think I can do to offer a new product or a service. And I think there's some obvious ones which are being addressed pretty well. And beyond that, I don't have a deep opinion. As a result, it's probably the biggest area of investment globally for which I am not deeply committed. And frankly, blockchain's got me occupied enough anyway. And at some point there will be some kind of crossover. And when I see that, maybe that'll be the way I go in. But I've seen so many attempts at things that were not well thought out, and so they just fizzle. One of my critiques right now of the business models within AI is most of them don't have what I would call a moat, some competitive differentiation or barrier. So when you are building something that anybody else can build at the same price as you, launch it at the same time, market it to the same people, then that's a very tough business to succeed. And then of course you add to the supply issues of the hardware you need to actually do it. And like we talked about, there's a reason NVIDIA is worth $3 trillion. That it's probably right now an area for very big companies, and they're investing massively in the infrastructure side. And I'm hopeful at some point we'll get something great. The closest I can liken it to from my vantage point, which they're not apples to oranges, but they're close, is when a GPS became, I think it was 93, 94, the US military opened it up to the public, right? And we got some good gadgets, companies like Garmin, there was some mapping companies and whatnot, but then GPS got embedded in phones. And for years, we VCs tried to figure out what would be the killer application of GPS on a phone. And it's one of when I teach seminars to entrepreneurs about, being on the 1 yard line, but not being able to see you're on the 1 yard line and trying to figure out how do I actually make that score, but I can't tell you how many hours spent in strategy sessions with startups where we were trying to figure out what do we do with this? And then it was like, boom, boom, boom. You had a series of companies that figured it out, which of course seems obvious. It always seems obvious after the fact. And they're like, oh, okay, this is what we use it for. But there was a lot of lost money before that. there was a lot of just wasted time. I feel a little bit like that with AI. I think, again, there are things you can do with it. Search is great, but it's hard to monetize search in its AI format. You know, what Google has, which is it produces a series of clickable links, all of which SEO optimization have ensured are above the fold, and most of which aren't really relevant to your search, but they're hoping you'll click anyway. That is a shitty way to organize information. AI does a much better, right? It tailors the response to what you want, but you're not monetizing links. So where is the SEO equivalent, which is where Google makes all its money, for AI? It's really seems to me a brutal trade-off. The more you allow a company's sponsors to influence the results that you've asked for, the poorer the result it is to you, the user. And so so there needs to be someone who figures out the perfect optimization where you perfectly match the search result you want with a revenue generating opportunity for a company who can help get you what you want.
There you go. It's going to be an amazing thing to see and how it all works out and plays out with AI. It's such a, I don't know, it really changes the landscape of everything.
I agree. It is, and I suspect it will be a few more years, and then out of the blue, it's going to appear. Someone's going to come forth to create the next Google or whatever. It'll be this massively valuable company because they figured out the trick. But in the meantime, the bigger companies, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Facebook, these businesses are investing in infrastructure, giving companies the ability to use the AI to make better customer service, to develop better email marketing techniques and whatnot. So it's useful, but it's sort of like, it's almost like more at the infrastructure level, not a, shining computer or example of consumer facing tech. Now people will say, what about ChatGPT? But I don't know for how long that business has a solid revenue model. It's a subscription based service. I don't think that's the final version of what becomes super valuable.
There you go. It'll be interesting to see how it works out. So as we go out, pitch out to everyone what you want them to do. Look you up on the interwebs, follow you, check out your companies, and all the .coms. Yeah.
As I mentioned, for me, it's William E. Quigley at William E. Quigley for Twitter. And other than that, I'm really not publishing anything. I do a lot of podcasts and interviews where I speak about certain things, but I like the longer form format than a CNBC interview because you can actually explain why you think a certain way. Yeah. So podcasts like yours are super valuable.
Definitely. And talking about so many different things that we can cover. So thank you very much, William, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
There you go. And thanks, Arnold, for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss One, the TikTokity, and all those crazy places in the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time. And that should have us out, William.